Yeah, we have well, yeah, it's good still, but it depends where you go.
Yeah.
So I have something new to throw in do I have something new? Yeah. So I have this is an interesting thing. I mean, granted, it's actually great you worked for a manufacturer.
Yeah, turns out.
Well, I mean, I know, like, even with BMX, like one man's 74-degree head angle is another person's 73.5, 73.8, 74.2. I get that. And I know there's even variances within the manufacturer, like there's just tolerances, but going from analog to e-bike, and I'm still on the regulator, I was anyways, I was pretty sure that the reach was longer on my Starling based on the measurements of website. But then in riding it, I was like, I mean, it felt good. They both fit. But I actually measured it, and the rider area is about 6 mil longer on the bike that says it has the shorter reach on the regulator.
So you are, hang on a second here. So you're on a large
regulator and a large Mega Murmur. Yep.
I'm gonna have to reference the geo chart here for the regulator.
480. I'm running it in the high setting.
Okay. And you're on a CX, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Geometry. Yeah. So 480 versus stated 485.
Yep.
And
the
so
stack, I will say the stack is about, I think the stack is like a 5 mil discrepancy.
6.
The stack is higher on the Starling.
Right. Yep, exactly. So low and high on the regulator, 641 and 646. What lower shock flip chip setting are you running on the regulator?
I'm on the high setting.
Okay.
So I'm running it at 480 because the reach drops 4 mil.
Yep. Okay. And so, all right, circling back. So on your Murmur, you're saying on both bikes, you measured and the regulator is coming up as longer.
Yeah, when I put a ruler to them, and I measured it a couple different ways. I measured from the star nut bolt on the top of the stem, which I know there could be variance, but then I measured, middle head tube. And then I also measured just, so like if this is my handlebar, just the back of it, right? Because it's a fixed point. So there's 3 points, and they pretty much came up. They were shorter in all 3 measurements. I think the most accurate one is the back of the handlebar because, that's a very fixed point from where I'm riding.
And the other end of the measurement reference point is that center of bottom bracket.
Correct.
So that is considered rider area, which differs from reach.
I thought the rider area. Okay, keep going. Because reach is up and then over.
Reach is the true vertical line of the center of your bottom bracket. That intersection point of the horizontal line from the center of the top of your head tube to the vertical line of the center of your bottom bracket. You're measuring a square angle.
I'm measuring my rider angle.
90 degree area.
Thank you. Okay.
Stack will come into play in reference to rider
area. Got it.
Right. And then you add another layer of that if you're measuring from handlebar, because stem length, spacers under the stem rise, all affects that rider area because you're triangulating. You're not referencing.
Because I'm bringing it back if I'm going up, and I'm going forward if I'm going down.
But that's a good point, because you shouldn't just use reach. Like, reach is a good base reference point,
right?
But then if you use both of those, that will help you kind of like triangulate the true distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the two things play an effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why you're finding some variance there, for sure.
There we go. Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Cool. But I'm 6 mil off there, which,
well, and I
don't ride both those bikes at the same time, obviously.
Let's also cover something really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
What length and model fork do you have on each bike?
Same fork. Same.
170
so Zeb Ultimate 170 Zeb.
Mm-hmm. And then, sorry. So keep in mind the stack measurement on the GeoChart on Transition's website is based around a 160 fork.
60.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're adding 10 mil to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also
picking out my steering, raising my bottom bracket.
And so that's a base reference, not necessarily actual height. So you have like head tube length to play in there, because then, you introduce like potentially different headsets. And when you're getting down to these micro things, like headsets can play, like some brands might have a slightly taller fork crown race, and how that interfaces with the cup and how deep the bearing seat is in the headset. Like, we're getting down to the nuances here, but that's all plays a part. Okay. So,
anyways, I just got a wild hair. I was just like, I don't know, because I was pulling my e-bike out, and I went and I rode it yesterday, and I'd been on my Starling a lot too. So it was just interesting to me that one had the longer reach, but the rider area was shorter.
Right.
Which, So I guess that's like where the bottom bracket might be.
You could, because you are so in tune with that, especially with your BMX background, you could experiment and take you can't, there's nothing you can really do about your reach. You can kind of affect your reach with stem length. I don't think you want to play with that. But you could adjust your rider area based on stem height, right? And you could get those to be pretty similar between the two bikes.
Yeah, so that means either come up on my e-bike or down on my come up on the shorter bike on the longer bike, or go down on the shorter bike.
Yeah, and you said
stem
that
height.
The regulator is measuring longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe pull a spacer out or add a spacer under the stem. Sorry, pull a spacer out of your regulator under the stem, or add one under your Starling.
No, it'd be the other way around, because the Starling.
Well, so that's where rider area, bottom bracket to bar, is kind of like you're introducing more variables there, because you have the head tube angle, right? So if you add height to it, you're bringing the bar shorter, slightly back. But if you add height, you're also bringing it away from the bottom bracket.
Oh, got it. Yep. You're right. You're right.
You're right.
I keep confusing area. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
So, by adding, say, for example, by adding a 5 mil spacer under your stem, you're not getting a true 5 mil.
Got it. It might be like 2 or whatever.
Yeah, 2.5 or
there's like an inverse exponential thing going on.
Yep.
I get it.
Yeah. So you are going to play with that, but also that's probably a good thing, because the reach, the horizontal measurement of your Starling on paper is longer than the regulator already.
Yeah.
And if the rider area is measuring shorter, the higher you go, it's going to bring the reach measurement back a little bit more in line with the regulator, and also increase your rider area.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I have anywhere to go on my transition anyway, because I'm running anvil stem, which has a 5 millimeter rise anyway, and it's slammed.
Got it. So maybe add some
So I'll
spacers
go up.
under your.
So add a spacer to the Starling. Got it.
Yeah. 5 mil or 2 5 mils for 10.
Yeah, I have a 5 underneath, but I have a 0 degree rise stem.
There you go.
So I could add another 5.
Yeah.
All right.
And I mean, these are like nuanced things that some people might not pick up on, but I think with the, coming from a BMX bike where everything's smaller,
where everything's like super
more compact. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no moving parts, right?
No.
It's all fixed. So it lends itself to picking up on those little things. Yeah, I mean,
cool.
I remember as a young pup scrutinizing over all of before I even understood what like all the measurements were, because like BMX bikes are like junior X, expert, pro XL, double XL, and that is what you got. And then in inches, what it was like, pro is typically a 20-inch top tube, and it was all top tube length.
Yeah, which has nothing to do with like, because your seat tube could be anywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, it was definitely reference point for sure. I think, anyways, guys are riding like 20. My top tube on my new BMX bike is 22.
Right.
Seat angles
a lot longer.
My chain stays long, but that's because I'm coming off in a mountain bike now. So I'm running it like close to 16 versus 15 and a half. But anyways, that's an aside. Okay. Well, thank you for that. That was helpful already, because going between two bikes, they both felt good, but it was, if I can get them closer, obviously that makes sense. But I was noticing on the e-bike, like initiating corners or just sticking in the corner was different than on, obviously as an e-bike was more planted, but it wasn't because it was like a heavier suspension feel turning thing. It was more like a where my body was turning thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
So, and even before that on the Starling, it's like, okay, everything fits. It feels good. I'm still working it out, but there's a couple times in the corner where it's like, wait, where are you? And I'm like, and I knew it's something up front, but I couldn't, because I have a 40 mil stem. I thought, well, maybe because the reach is longer, I need to come back 5 mil and just kind of, but then I could come up, which kind of does both. It gives me bigger ride area, and it gives me more rider area and brings me back at the same time, is what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Another thing to consider there, not to make this even more complicated, do you run the same air pressure in your fork on your Starling as your regulator?
I run more on the e-bike because the bike's heavier.
Right.
But I will say they both feel
similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like in relation to bike weight.
Correct. Like adjusted for weight. Right.
Yeah. Right. And doing that by feel is probably the best way to go about it, right? Like you could get down to like measuring fork sag, which I don't subscribe to.
I don't like the fork sag thing. Thank you.
I think that's all based on feel. If it feels similar, that's good enough. I mean, that's really where you want to be, is like, I would say as a whole, there's all this, all of this like data that you can apply to settings and adjustments. But like when you get to the point where you're like, that feels right or that feels wrong, that's kind of like where you're narrowing down the sweet spot. Because like, doesn't matter what you do, if it feels right or wrong, that's really the end goal.
Yeah. Erring on the side of right, of course. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So All right, well, I'll let you take me through the thing. I kind of sidetracked us a little bit, but
Yeah,
it
no
sounds
worries.
like, yeah.
Yeah, so normally I figured we would just jump in here kind of blind.
Okay.
Normally I have like a client intake form that I would send you that
Makes
captures
sense.
like your
Kind of riding, what kind of
location,
riding?
exactly, rider weight, rider height, model, components, that sort of thing. That, and for one, that helps me capture the data and gives me like a paper picture of you and your bike, but also kind of gives me an idea about who you are as a person based on how you talk about it, because it is a text format, most of it.
Yep.
It prompts you to write about
Mm-hmm.
your situation versus like checkboxes.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of this, which I'm discovering is that probably half of this work that I do with people is getting to know about the person
Mm-hmm.
and
Makes
how
sense.
they process information, how they interpret information, how they process it, and then internalize it, and then how they relay it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, I mean, that's half of this process, really. And then that kind of gives me a baseline of how to approach setting the bike up appropriately for the person.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no two situations that like work the same. Like just because two riders can be the same height, same weight, similar riding ability, similar aptitude, similar taste of trails, their settings might vary dramatically just based on their preferences. And
Mm-hmm.
there's no right or wrong there, right?
Right. No, I get that.
And you can use, like my baseline is kind of like referencing manufacturer specifications for setup, and then kind of using that as a baseline, and then all of the information I've gathered from the person, what they're experiencing, and then kind of like tailoring the direction to go from baseline based on all that. So we are kind of skipping a step, but this is also a fun way to do this, which
Did
is
you
like,
also know me?
well, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And to kind of go at it blind is kind of fun.
Yeah.
And see, the proof's in the pudding, really.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
talk to me a little bit about your experiencing, pun intended, transitioning from a transition to your Starling.
And also so I'm transitioning from, but I'm also transitioning with, right? Because Starling
Totally.
doesn't make an e-bike, and I honestly can't think of another e-bike that suits what I would want anyway, without spending $12,000 on something ridiculous that's going to give me the same experience. So, and I say that because if I'm looking at numbers, a lot of the e-bikes have, and I'm sure they're great, but compared to my Starling, right? For just simple general measurements, 485 reach, 455 chainstay. That's on the longer side. And then the transition has, is kind of like 450-ish, I think it's like 448 in the rear, 40. So I feel like between both bikes, I'm not, I'm not looping out. I'm not able to pick up my front wheel, that kind of thing. Like they're both very rideable, is what I'm saying when I go back and forth. And I ride my e-bike a lot. So anyways, but coming off of a platform that's 4-bar horsed, which I like totally know. I think I've lived with it for forever, really.
Yep. Right.
And man, like, do I know it? Like, I know my sag is going to be 27%, period. Like, you know what I mean? I know the range of adjustment. I know what it's going to feel like on square hedge hits. I know it's going to feel like, I just know what the bike's going to do everywhere. Not that that's bad or good. It's just, well, it's actually great. I know, right? Like seems like every platform probably has its limitations. I've ridden other things, but I know that bike, and so I ride it accordingly. So this new one is like, I mean, other than fit, which it fits me, cool, right? And if I wasn't, we wouldn't even have had that conversation if I wasn't switching back and forth on the e-bike, because it would have been like, okay, just get used to it a little bit more. Maybe. But it was still like there was some initiating corners where I was like, okay, something's a little like I probably should adjust for that. So single pivot, super linear. They recommend, and Joe's been good. He's like, he obviously he builds the bike by hand. So they recommend coil, which is counterintuitive because you figure air shock has more progressivity, but I did put an air spring on it, an air shock on it, and it was okay. But the problem with it was it didn't initiate travel very well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a super deluxe ultimate small can. Anyway, so I'm on a Vivid coil ultimate, and I'm running, if we're using sag as a minute, I think I'm like right at 20, maybe 22% fully kitted. And lately I've just been playing with the settings on the shock just to get it more dialed in. I don't want to say perfect, but just more dialed in. But I did go back to back air and coil, and the coil felt much better on that back because it initiated the travel, and I ride a heavier spring than normal because it's linear, right? So because otherwise it'd be easy to blow through everything.
Yep.
It has an HBO, has a good bottom out bumper. I've never really experienced that anyway. I think I'm pretty soft on the bike. I'm not a hug to flat guy. Go ahead.
Really quick, Jason, just for context, the two shocks we're referencing, I'm guessing Vivid Air and Vivid Coil?
No. Vivid Coil and RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate.
Okay.
Because the big can, based on Starling's recommendations,
is too linear.
It's too wallowy.
Right.
Because it's linear, it's too wallowy. So if I were, I guess, to run a Vivid Air, I'd have to like stuff it full with whatever springs anyway, or not springs. Stuff it with whatever spacers, tokens, whatever they're called.
Yes. Yeah, you would, with a bike that's linear, you would err on the side of smaller air volume.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm on the coil and I like it. I think it looks better too. So not hating on that. But yeah, it's good. So I've been doing back-to-back runs as much as I can in my local. It's gonna go out today. And yeah, so my low speed. Yes, so yeah, it's somewhere between my low speed is all the way backed out. So it initiates travel more easily.
Mm-hmm.
So like on the transition, right, with that same shock, which I do have on I'm on a 475 spring. If I put a 475 or 500 on the Starling, I can blow through that. So I'm on a 550.
Okay.
Which, like I said, it rides higher. It just does. And that also could be some of the turning stuff that I have to learn. So my low speed is all the way open, so it initiates easier. And then I'm playing with low speed compression. There is no low speed rebound on that.
Right. And so on that shock, you have low and high speed compression control.
It's got low speed, it's got low and high speed, and HBO, right?
Yeah.
And so my HBO was turned up. There's like 4 clicks, but I had it. So like if everything's set in the middle, I had the HBO one past middle.
Yep.
And then
because it's +2 or -2 from
correct.
middle.
And then right. And then the high speed compression I had +1 from middle.
Okay. And low speed is open.
And low speed is open. And it has felt pretty good. But then there's this play between obviously the front fork and then just rebound, right? So that's the other thing, because they recommend a faster rebound.
Yeah, and I think to some
Very
degree,
Starling.
I mean, rebound is kind of like personal flavor,
For sure.
you know,
For sure.
and
Yeah, and that's a rider too, right? Because you got to be able to to me, it's
right.
about handling what the shock's giving back to you.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think within reason, people should be running rebound as quick as you're comfortable with, you know, not
That's
like
fair.
not so quick that it's just like there's
Jackhammer.
no control at all.
Right.
Like it feels like your back wheel is just flopping around. But I would say from my experience, a lot of people tend to run slower rebound than they should, just because they fear that if it's too fast, they're going to get bucked. Yeah. So let now that I know your compression settings, let's cover one more thing really quickly. Your spring preload. Where are you at on that?
So I went to fluid focus because I don't like it. I don't like it. It's totally sound like a bougie dude, but that's fine. I'll own it. Can't do the red spring on the right side. One, it was too light. It was a 500, but I really like this. What are they called? Super alloy racing springs. Because they, from what I've seen, my experience with them, and I've had them on a lot of bikes, they're pretty darn accurate compared to the other stuff.
Yeah. Well, like a coil spring that you get with a coil shock, there's
a lot of variance.
Up to like 30-40 pound variance, right? Where like I've received in the past, I've received very special, non for public consumption, very expensive titanium springs from Fox, for example, that are not outsourced. They're testing them and they come handwritten to the pound. Right. But yeah, that's a good point. Is that
right? I mean, not only that. I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like if it's off, who cares what it says as long as it's set right for you.
Exactly.
I get that.
Totally.
I get that. But if I'm purchasing the dang spring and I order it and it's wrong, then I'm kind of salty. And so I went there, and Ryan set it up, and then he also has a collar that goes on the
friction, like a friction reduction collar, a binding reduction
correct
collar.
He has that. And it also has a whatever a screw to keep it in place. So he put the coil on and was like, he set it to exact
okay,
to where there's no it's not, my coil's not pushed down too far, it's not too loose, it's actually perfectly in that shock, and nothing's moving.
Okay. So what, can you give me a brief synopsis of what you're experiencing from the rear suspension that makes you feel like you want to explore? Obviously you always want to keep making your bike feel better. That's human nature, right?
Well, so right off the bat, when I built the bike, I was like, okay, this bike fits me, and it's seems like if I just kind of point and shoot, it's going to do all the things, right? And that's just kind of me eyeing up the setup, thinking this is about how I want it, totally spitballing it. So I'm not racing, but I guess I'm learning the limit, right? So, and I shouldn't even say that. I'm learning my range is probably the better way to say that.
Range of
comfort. Where I need to be range, right? I shouldn't say limit, but that. So I know. So when I first had it, it was so I had the compression, I didn't have it all the way open. I had it low speed compression, probably middle or maybe one less than middle. Little stiff, but kind of fine. I still had fun on the ride, kind of thing, right? Rebound, little slow. HBO, little too much, right? So there's just kind of just a little bit of harshness compared to what I was used to, right? Don't get me wrong. And the more I get comfortable with the bike and start to just kind of let loose and let it hang more too, I'm sure that might change a little bit, but I'm still trying to find this range of operation. Like for instance, with the Spire, the bike I came off of, it was like, okay, bike park, click, click, home, click, click, like, and I like that was it. I knew where everything was supposed to be. But there was a range.
Right.
So that's what I'm learning here. I understand each platform has a limitation, or I should say limitation, that's a bad word, trade-offs. So I get that. And a lot of it's just like rider input, right? So once we get past fit, which is like we talked about earlier, then it's like, okay, well, to me, my instinct is telling me with this. So the sensation is this. Just a little more control, probably on, and honestly, like the control isn't so much like straight chunky stuff or even fluttery stuff. It's really like, if I'm being specific, it's like breaking it into corners. Like that's kind of like the spot where it's like I'm not sure where I am, if that makes sense. And it is, we talked about the initiating corners, which could be suspension, but also could be just where my body is. But I do feel it in the back too a bit.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, totally. That's definitely you're painting a good picture for me. So couple things. First of all, you're coming from a 4-bar link system, right? To a single pivot, a true single pivot system.
True.
Like the early transitions, like I'll use the TR 450, for example, because that was a bike that I raced on. I did the most downhill racing on and spent the most time tuning around. That was a linkage driven single pivot. Right. So it is a true single pivot. However, the shock has a linkage mechanism to control the rate of the shock movement. Whereas the Starling is a true single pivot where it's literally just a lever arm
door
controlling the shock. So it does reduce the amount of things to explore, right? Because it's the purest form of suspension action, basically.
Yeah.
And so the first thing, I guess, to talk about, well, I don't know, I think it's all related. So a 4-bar link system acts, let's use a 4-bar link system versus like a high pivot. One of the biggest differences there is rear axle path, right? So a 4-bar link system is going to be, as you go through the travel from start to end, it's, in most cases, it's going to, your chainstay length is going to get shorter by the end of the travel, right? There might be some, it might not be
it might have an arcing
curve.
Right.
Well, we'll have an arc, but it might not be a perfect arcing curve. It might kind of like be a bit more vertical at one point and then come back, or, it's a changing rate.
Right.
Whereas your Starling, that there's no control of that axle path. It is just, it's getting shorter. If the pivot was very high, the single pivot, the axle path might be closer to vertical, but then you're going to have chain leverage influence, right? Yep. Yeah. A lot of like crank movement and feedback in your feet. Huge variance of like anti-squat, anti-rise, all of that stuff. So that's probably that's probably what I would say you're experiencing is the differences of the two systems, right? Because like as a generalism, like when I'm coming, say, kind of like a steep entrance to like a very well supported berm, I kind of like
I like to have the sensation of the rear end kind of squatting in that turn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it kind of provides a sense of
Catches you.
you don't feel vulnerable. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like gets you set in the bike. Whereas like a bike with like high and super high anti-squat, it's under braking, and I'm not super like this is a bit complicated, and I'm not super knowledgeable about this, but if I
Mm-hmm.
understand correctly, super high anti-squat under braking, it's going to make the bike want to stand up
Mm-hmm.
more, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like using your rear brake to control the squat of the bike into the corner, whereas you don't have that much control, as much control on a single pivot as you do on a 4-bar link. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole reason some brands opt for a 4-bar link, because there's better there. You have like a single pivot, you're kind of hydrolocking the rear suspension movement, preventing the rear suspension from moving under braking. That's why they had floating brake arms
Yeah.
for a single pivot, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the rear end could still move
Can still be active when you're braking.
while you're skidding, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I suspect that's kind of the difference that you're noticing, is that the bike is kind of like not locking out, but it's like effectively closing the compression. It's like
Mm-hmm.
hitting
It's
like
closing
a remote,
the range when I'm braking. It's closing the range of movement.
exactly. Like you're
the rear.
you're limiting your 170 mil travel bike to like 70 mil, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not accurate, but I mean that's the sensation you're getting.
Yeah.
So like, sure, opening up your compression all the way high and low
Mm-hmm.
could probably aid that one instance, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but there are going to be cons to that action in a lot of other scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's kind of finding the balance of like high and low, spring rate, that sort of thing. Your HBO might come into play a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk to me a little bit about your understanding of the difference between high and low speed compression.
Okay. As oversimplified, my low speed compression is like I will like yeah, oversimplifying it, it would be more for those initial, like it'll hold me firmer initially in the travel. And the high speed is, and it's based on what I understand and what I think I feel is the low speed is for the slower shaft movements. Not speed as far as speed, but the shaft mover, the lower shaft. And then the high speed is for the the faster shaft movements and the more, I would say, bigger impacts. So like once you're already kind of like in the travel, so to speak. But I just kind of equate low speed. It's like, okay, well, that would be the adjusted kind of where I'd want to be, like if I want to be softer off the top or more firm. And then the high speed is kind of like the invert, is kind of the other end of that, where it's like, okay, do I want more support at the end or a little less? That's how I understand it.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think what I've kind of, and a lot of this I kind of speak from my own developed theories, whether right or wrong. But I'm also injecting a lot of my feel based on experience. And trying to translate that in a way that's like digestible. So, and just a disclaimer, as you know, I'm not an engineer by any educated engineer, but I like to say garageneer. So like when you're talking compression or rebound adjustment, suspension manufacturers, they like to say it's all based on shaft velocity, like you said, right?
Mhm.
However, there's no absolute there, and
Mhm.
every change has an equal to or opposite reaction. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
is that what EMC squared or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So if you,
yeah. But the bottom line is you can't just do one thing. Like if you do one thing here, it's going to affect something elsewhere.
exactly, totally.
Mhm.
So going back to the shaft speed thing, so isolating that aspect. So high speed compression controls things like, okay, imagine riding down a street and then just like riding into a square. That's a pretty clear, for discussion point, that's how to like imagine a high speed shaft movement, right? Because it's going from static to like bang, right? Moving really quickly out of the way, right? Um, and then like low speed controls like rolling down a street and then gently weighting and unweighting the bike, right? That from a foundational perspective, that those are what the two adjustments are controlling.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
And so the by adding low speed compression, you're increasing the resistance of the bike to push into when you're gently pushing up and down. And then like as you run into a curb, there's going to be the shaft movement is going to be more controlled, right? So you're going to limit the amount of shaft movement, or it's going to make it feel slightly different, right? Like if you crank your high speed compression, if you run into a curb with your high speed compression open, it's going to be harsh, but it's going to like move through the travel a lot. And then if you have your high speed compression cranked all the way closed, it's going to be more controlled, but it's probably going to feel a lot harsher. So
Okay.
there is a balance there between like, let's use high speed compression, for example, a balance of like, you might say when you run into that curb, you feel like unsettled because of how much movement there was, right? And there's a point to where like you add one click at a time of high speed compression, and it gets to a point where you're like, oh, I feel less unsettled by running into that curb. And then you keep cranking the suspension, and then you're going to be like, oh, that was like jarring. That was like really harsh, you know? And then you go into that like unsettled range again because you're like, you have too much feedback, right? So you're trying to find that like sweet window, right? Of where that it's not going to like, it's not ever going to completely eliminate the sensation of running into the curb, but you're going to find that kind of sweet spot where it feels the best, right?
Right.
And then the same thing with low speed compression. All of this is interpretive based on like what you want out of it. Like imagine, so you're in a bunny hop contest, and there's like the high bar, right? And you're getting to a point where you're trying to like clear a pretty high mark, and you feel like when you're trying to push off to bunny hop to get lift, you're introducing a lot of energy into the bike, and you want more resistance and platform to push off of. You might start adding low speed compression because you have more to push into. The more you push in, the more resistance there is. You don't feel like gushy. It's not like, you know.
Right.
So like that's kind of like a very high level view of what high and low speed compression
I would
controlling.
agree with that.
Yeah. So you take that to like a trail, like riding trail, right? And it becomes a little bit more complicated, right? There are a lot more variables there. But if you kind of keep hold of those two fundamental principles, I think that's kind of good to help isolate what you're feeling and what you're trying to get out of it.
Mhm.
The other thing is that while suspension manufacturers like to say that high and low speed compression or rebound is all velocity specific, shaft position, so suspension position does
Mhm.
come into play, especially on rebound, because
Yes.
so low speed rebound can control the return on the top end of the stroke, right? Or low speed
Mhm.
rebound might be like a deep impact, and then as you're returning, low speed can kind of like take the top out nose off of the end of the return, because like
Mhm.
as the suspension is returning to full extension, it's slowing down, right?
Yes.
So low
Yes.
speed is controlling the end of that return, whereas
Mhm.
high speed is controlling the initial like kickback.
Mhm.
So that, I mean, inherently that is, while it is velocity, it also is position
No, that totally
dependent.
makes sense. And the good for simplicity's sake, the RockShox only has rebound, right? There's
Right.
no high speed,
Totally.
low speed.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Even when I ran Fox, I would close out my high speed and only use low speed on the fork and the rear when I use Fox.
Yeah.
And it was great, actually.
Right. Yeah. So that simplifies things. And I will just to go back really quickly.
Yeah.
On just the general high level view of like what things are controlling with compression and rebound, but like going back to compression in the position realm, you can experience like high and low speed compression. You have those occurrences anywhere in the travel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you could be 80% through the travel and still need to control your low speed compression,
That
right?
makes sense. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I hear you on that. Okay.
Right. Or vice
Yep.
versa, right?
Mhm.
Like you might be slightly unweighted on the bike, but still want some high speed compression control, right? And those two things play with one another based on the architecture of the shock itself, right? Like if you have your high speed compression 3/4 of the way in and your low speed compression circuit all the way open, they affect one another because it's all oil flow and hydraulics, right? And then you have like IFP pressure and all that to come into play. If a lot, in almost every case, for your high speed compression that's 3/4 of the way closed, for it to effectively do its job, you have to have some low speed compression closure. Because if it's all the way open, it's like a fully open oil orifice, right? Or as open as it can get, which is not allowing the high speed compression circuit to do its job. So, and again, that's not an absolute, but they do play with one another based on the architecture of the shock and the hydraulics and all of that. And then you get into really fun stuff like ambient air temperature. Right. Which will affect your oil velocity and, you know, the
viscosity. No, for sure. Your shock definitely runs faster when it's really hot out.
Right. Or at the bottom of a
looser.
2,000-foot run, right? Because the shock is super hot, the oil is thin. Versus and that's why, you know, some of my mentors on the suspension tuning side, especially like at a high level race environment, when you're going through a test session into a race scenario, you would work through a couple days of testing and get to a point where you're like, my bike feels good for racing. They would say, never, ever adjust anything on your bike on the first couple of runs the next day, because it's always going to feel harsh. Because your body, everything's warmed up. Your body,
you're just getting out of bed. It's colder. It's
totally
damper. Yeah,
totally.
All that stuff.
Your bike is going to feel like crap because you're coming off of those settings to where it's optimized for going 100%. You know, your 100%.
Yep.
I learned that from you, by the way. So it's a lot to cover and to digest, but those are a lot of the factors that come into play when you're trying to narrow down these things.
No, that's super helpful. That's super helpful because, well, actually it gives me, because I'm not far off, right? Like, and I'm not looking, I know it's weird, but I'm not looking for optimal, honestly. I'm kind of like let's tune out the stuff that doesn't feel right. Because if I can tune out the stuff that doesn't feel right, then I'm kind of in that, again, I feel like I'm in that kind of range where I need to be. And because nothing's ever going to be like, well, it's not BMX where like you're going to have the grip you need, you're going to have the acceleration you need, you're going to have like, because there's a lot more literally moving parts and moving variables. Everything from the ground to the track is different, between runs, temperature, parts. So I'm, anyways, that's just kind of like my general philosophy. So, but it helps to know so it's kind of interesting. Like it gives me some options as far as, just where I'm thinking, well, we'll probably get there, but yeah, between the high and low compression.
Yeah.
And rebound.
Yeah. So you when I queried you on your understanding of high and low speed compression, one of the first things that you mentioned was low speed controlling the initial part of the stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be careful with that thought because that's not necessarily true, right?
No.
That might be your gut instinct is like the bike is linear. My airspring didn't feel good on this bike because it's not a supple off the top. I want to open low speed compression. That might not be the actual right direction to go. And I'm not saying to run loads of low speed compression, but maybe a bit more than you would think.
Okay.
Right. And it could be a balance. You don't have a huge range of adjustment high and low on that shock. So you might be talking like,
it's really like one click. Yeah.
Totally. A click or two here or there. You might find your sweet spot one click less of high speed compression and one click more of low speed compression. Right. The other thing, and I think that this is the Starling contact is that the owner?
Yeah, Joe.
Joe. Okay. So I suspect that the reason they suggest running a faster rebound is to kind of aid that hydrolocking action you get from the single pivot construction of the bike, right? The more open the rebound is going to help overcome some of that brake jack that you're getting by a single pivot. And so I imagine you're probably running a bit faster based on.
Yeah. And it's funny because I was always on when I say faster side, this is like, me out with my riding group and like outside of like the BMXers I ride with, which we're all on the faster side. I think like you said, I think the average kind of rider rides probably a little slower than most. But yeah, I'm and when we get to like Snow Summit and stuff, when you get those braking months and they're high speed, it's like I want to be able to just rip through that, right? So I tend to be on the faster, but this one surprisingly, yeah. So yeah, I'm on the faster side. Bottom line, yeah.
Yeah. So what might be interesting for you to try, like some homework, is on your next few rides, devote 15 minutes or so to like just pushing and sessioning some sections, right?
Yep.
And do like a small version of bracketing. So find a section that has like a section of trail where you're trying to shed speed, right? Like going into a corner or something, right? That has that has like some braking bumps or something like that, and just experiment a little bit. Try it with what you feel like your rebound, really like isolate it to one adjustment at a time. Like crank your suspension a couple clicks slower on rebound than what you currently have. See what that feels like. And then go do it again with your rebound more open. And that might give you like that might provide a light bulb moment for you. Like, that kind of like solved that one thing. Right. And then and I tend to work in like, when trying to isolate things like this, I'll work in broad strokes. Like maybe just go full rebound and then fully open. And then you'd be like, wow, you feel the two ends of the ranges, right?
Right.
And you're like, and those will be like, whoa, those are two totally different things. And then you can kind of then you can like narrow down
it in.
Right. The other thing that is interesting in the time we are with mountain bike technology is that a lot of brands are offering out of the like OE a la carte menu totally different rebound tune curves. So you have like rebound, linear rebound, progressive rebound, which is a lot harder to describe and understand than the same terminology on the compression side.
Yeah.
But like it's all based on the rate of return and how it responds to compression and types of impact. So that might, at a certain point, that might be something I think is farther down the road for you. Yeah. But as you start to like narrow things down based on your limitations of the single pivot bike, you might want to experiment with like a couple of those tunes. Like if you could get your hands on the same, like, because they come in like RL 10 through 80, right?
Yes.
In 10 degree increments, right? And the baseline being like 10 being the lightest rebound tune, 80 being the firmest rebound tune from baseline. And then there's like CL and
compression tunes.
Yep, exactly. So like the number part of that designation is going to be the range in which it's like valved for. So like you would want to find the right range, and ideally you would end up in a spot where your rebound adjuster is kind of in the middle towards closed. From an oil flow perspective, and this is just another theory, but this is things I've garnered, is that fundamentally, like if your sweet spot on your shock is with the external adjuster, rebound adjuster all the way open, and you're like, that rebound speed feels right to me, because the rebound adjuster typically is just an orifice, right? On a single rebound adjuster. So your orifice is open, which means the oil is flowing freely through the port, which that needle is controlling. And when you close that needle, it's forcing the oil to go through the valve stack, the rebound valve stack, right? Which creates the control.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are on a rebound tune, and this is hard to apply from a manufacturer's standpoint, because like you have to have a range for different rider weights of people.
Yeah, but it sounds like if I'm at the end of a thing, and that's like my sweet spot is at the end of a thing, that might not be good because I have like nowhere to go from there.
Yes. Like ideally, in a perfect world, you would be in the middle. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Because then you can go both directions, right? Based on like ambient air, like outside influences.
Right.
So you have control either direction. But like definitely you want to have your adjuster closer to closed than open on rebound on your shock, because you have the single adjuster that's a needle valve, and you want
the oil to kind of be forced to go through the rebound
Right.
valving, because that's actually creating the control. So it's not just like an absolute thing. It's like actually creating control based on the inputs.
Yeah. So I actually was able to pull up my shock tune. I like them
Okay.
apples. Yeah. So my rebound tune is 55.
Okay.
And
Pretty
I feel like
middle
I'm
of the road.
pretty, but I think I'm also like, even within my rebound setting range, like I'm not at either end yet, and I'm in
Yep.
a decent spot.
So it's 55, but does it say what the actual valving code is? Is there CL?
So it
or
says rebound. So compression tune is 30. It says C30. Rebound
Yep.
tune. This is RockShox R55.
Right. And is this a shock that came? You said this is a shock that came off your Sentinel, or sorry, your Spire.
No, I couldn't use it because I just got a new shock, like just boom off
Okay.
the shelf. Yeah.
Yeah. And
PTI.
so potentially, so there's a couple of things. This could be I don't know from consumer facing side if they're eliminating the linear versus progressive variation to simplify menu options for consumer facing side, or rebound RP or whatever it is, RP versus RL or whatever, right? But that might be something, because you do have a custom suspension tuner that you work with. That might be something, a conversation to have with him later on down the road as you're narrowing things in. But I think right now, isolating your speed and getting an understanding, I think the exercise to go through of doing the repeats with rebound open, rebound close, and then when you find a sweet spot with that, then doing some experimenting with high and low speed compression on a similar section of trail. And it doesn't have to be a long section, just the moment where you're like, this is where I'm feeling this. Yeah.
I have a perfect spot for that. Yep.
And this is, I mean, a lot of this work, like this relationship with you and the relationship that I have with clients, does require some, like, if you really want to like find the needle in the haystack, or the sweet spot, it does require some homework and some work on your end, and some time investment into learning what the process is and how you get there, and what you're actually adjusting when you make those changes, and what that feels like. And that's the part where it's empowering you to be able to make those changes on your own.
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot with the last bike because I redid. I really liked my Spire a lot. Fit, feel, everything. And then I got another one and made that into a downhill bike. But to do that, required a couple of tweaks here and there. But in doing that, like I did have a coil, but I ended up running a Vivid Air on that, and that felt best on both the trail and the downhill version. But I went through, like I had one revalved, so I felt that stiffer feeling. Like I felt like all the ranges, and I felt like I learned a lot. So the purpose with you is like, I'm on a completely different platform. And other than feel, my old reference points are kind of moot. Right.
Yeah, like totally.
Yeah, straight up. So, so it's been, so basically I'm using you to help speed up this process. Because the other thing about the Spire is, like, I was on that platform for years, and then I said, oh, well, I'm going to make it into a downhill bike too. And so, but even still, that was like the better part of a year to get it perfect. And it was like, oh, I'm switching bikes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fresh start's great.
So far, I feel like I think like I'm kind of like close to that, but it's like just a couple things. But that helps out a lot with the high and low speed compression and how they may work together.
Mhm.
I think my rebound I feel like I'm probably in a decent range for rebound, but I'll be interested to see what it likes when I see what the change is when I change, mess with the compression this time.
Yeah.
I'll mess with all of them, but I'll do it, one at a time.
Yeah. And for rebound, I mean, it's so subjective to the person, if it feels right, it feels right. If it feels wrong, it feels wrong. But you do want your bike to be working as actively as possible, right? Which is providing traction, right? If your rebound is overly damped, you might feel like that's like glued to the ground, but then you hit a bump and your wheel is not returning, right? That's bad. So I heard this years ago, and I think it's kind of like a good baseline. It's a way to help somebody go through like a good starting reference point for rebound is to like sit on your bike, ride off a curb and slowly and look at watch your rear shock compress and return. And if you get more than like 2 oscillations of it before it to neutral, that's probably too fast or too open. And then if it just has like one, like if it like compresses and then like slowly returns, it's probably too slow. You want to see like at least 1 to 2 oscillations in there. That's probably a good ballpark.
1 to 2. I missed that. 1 to 2 oscillations from like off, like just rolling off a curb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But if you go off the curb and you're like,
yeah.
Then
if it's trampoliny,
then it's probably too open. But every bike is different. Every rider is different. So, but I mean, that's like a good like range finder. The virtual thing is interesting. It's like the person's way of relaying information and their understanding of like the mechanics plays a much bigger part. So things like that are super helpful. Yeah. Well, any other questions, Jay Rich?
No, that was cool. That was helpful. Yeah, that was helpful. Oddly enough, on both bikes, and I think this is just me growing in my riding. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to say better. I would say better, but growing. I've actually added more compression to my forks, and they feel better too. So, and what spawned that was just like trying to being mindful of a balance on the Starling, but then I like on the e-bike even I was like, and then I kind of like, those where I was riding had some you can put the dirt was great, so I could really push. And there was some pretty so I added some high and low, and it was like it actually felt better, so go figure. But
it can be, all of these things can be counterintuitive to what you think. Like introducing more control can make a bike feel better, right? Like you might think as a fundamental principle, you want it more open, which is going to make it feel better. But a lot of times introducing more control is going to make it neutralize a lot of the input, So like,
and I think I am probably, I'll just say, pushing differently now that I've, especially it's funny because I did like a little turn clinic with Luca Cometti, and I think like that unlocked a couple things, and so that probably, because now I'm like a little bit more willing to push more on the front, so that's probably why, like, that That's a good word. Control. Introducing control in the suspension is probably better.
Was that did that turn clinic take place after your gate start video with him?
Yes, it did.
Because I caught that comment you made, and he called you out on it. That's cool. That was a good video, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's funny. Even this far out of a BMX career, I watched that video and it got my muscle memory juices flowing. Like hearing the gate beat.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. No, I'm glad he called me out. But I had asked other people and they kind of just assume I need someone to like watch me do it. I can go do drills, but if my body's in the right position or if I'm, so it was good. I was glad I did it.
Awesome. Well, you got a 10 o'clock, right?
I do. I appreciate it. Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely, Jay Rich. It's super helpful for me. I mean,
yeah.
In this stage, like every opportunity I have to formally talk through stuff with people is like helping me, kind of construct it for the next time. So yeah, this is awesome.
So what we'll do, I'll go try this stuff out and then maybe we'll reconvene.
Yep.
And then, and then if you want to, you can send it to whomever and you can splice it up however. And
yeah, I'm not a video editor person.
No,
and
send it to somebody.
Don't know that I want to be, so that might yeah.
I mean, unless you like it and have a knack for it, don't do it.
Yeah, no,
because even if you like it and have a knack for it, it's still time consuming.
Oh yeah. Well, and I understand my limitations. Like I'm creative in certain ways. I'm not good at like photography, video editing, photo editing. Like I can't frame a photo for my life. Like
yeah, I'm terrible at that too.
All right, Jay Rich. Yeah, let's just check in a week or so and
cool.
Go from there.
Happy Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, likewise. All right.
All right, take care.
Cheers.
Bye.